Good day, vinyl community. Mr. Rick here once again with another video, but this time I thought we'd take a break from all the yearbook things that I've been doing and focus on one entertainer that is gone. And his name was Gentleman Jim Reeves. Yeah, I am a Jim Reeves fan. Have been since 1972. I've got every one of his American released LPs except for one of them. And I've been a fan of his since 1972. I won't go into that. But let's get started, because I've got a stack here of about 60 albums, and I'm hoping to get through all of them in one video. The first thing I want to do is show you a book that came out. This is a book by Michael Stresgus. I hope that I pronounce his name. And it's called Like a Moth to a Flame. And it's the intimate story of Jim Reeves. And it's got his early days from his boyhood when he was born and on up through the death and everything. And it's a very interesting story. And if you get a chance, you can find this. I think it's still in print. But a very good book, and I've read it twice, and I've enjoyed it. Now, he got started when he went to KWKH in Louisiana. He was hired as an announcer in 1949, I believe the year was. And one night in 1952, Hank Williams didn't show up on the Louisiana hayride. And the manager told him, go ahead, you've been wanting to sing, go ahead, grab a guitar and go out there. And he grabbed the guitar and ran out and sang a song. Well, and the man with the recording company heard it and said, I like the song, I'd like for you to record it. And on ABOT Records. And he did, and the song was Mexican Joe, and it became the #1 record of 1953. And that's where Jim got his start. He had produced a song called Wagon Load of Love before that, which didn't go very far. And Bimbo was next, and he was off and running. And these are his ABOT recordings. This is from 1982. Let me show you Volume 1 first. There's Volume 1. They released in 1982 the ABOT recordings, and it's got a lot of, his Butterfly Love, Penny Candy, and several others that he recorded for the ABOT people. And then there's Volume 2, which came out the same year, which is Jim Reeves, and a lot more. There's another 20. There's 20 songs on each album. And these are very interesting recordings, to say the least. If you find a copy of those, you might, if you're a big Jim Reeves fan like I am. We'll come up to 1956, which an album that I don't have was called Singing Down the Lane, which was released on the ABOT label. And I've tried to get it, but the price of it is just too high, and I'm not willing to pay the amount of money that these folks want for that album. But Singing Down the Lane is a very good album. I've got all the tracks to it, I just don't have the album. In 1957, RCA produced Bimbo. And this is, of course, the 1953 hit Bimbo. Mexican Joe is also on here. Drinking Tequila, and several others. And very good. I hope you can see that. I hope the light isn't. But there's the album Bimbo from 1957. Then they produced, I'm not sure if these are in particular order or not, but in 1957 also they produced Jim Reeves. Now in 57, of course, was the year that Four Walls came out and was a massive hit for him, but it's not on this album. This is when they took it and they were trying to establish the Nashville sound. And a lot of these songs on this album are done with a male choir behind them and kind of a blues sound to it, but it's still a very good album. Teardrops in My Heart, I think, was the hit on it, and Final Affair, which is also a very good song. Come up to 1958, Girls I Have Known. Here's the album that Marie came off of, if you remember that one. Anna Marie was a hit in 1958 for him. Also Sweet Sue, Just You. And And of course, Goodnight Irene, everybody was doing Goodnight Irene back then. But this is the album from 1958, Jim Reeves, Girls I Have Known. He didn't produce a bad album as far as I was concerned. I enjoyed all of them. Then in 59, he produced the gospel album, God Be With You. And this is from 1959, and it's got a lot of the old hymns on it. In the Garden, for example, God Be With You, Precious Memories, How Long Has It Been, It Is No Secret, and several others. And another good album. This is from 1959, gentleman Jim Reeves. Songs to Warm the Heart came out in 1959. And this album had the song on it called Just Call Me Lonesome. Now and Then There's a Fool Such as I. And Am I Losing You came off of this album. And you remember that hit, I'm sure. If you've heard a lot of Jim Reeves. It's the Songs to Warm the Heart. A very good album. He gets away. It's done with a four-piece band, and they sound good. Of course, most of these albums were produced by Chet Atkins. We come up to 1960. According to My Heart was a hit for him back in 1955, I believe. And this is a compilation album that RCA Camden produced, and they're just his old songs from 1950s. Stand Out Your Window is one of them. I've Lived a Lot in My Time, If You Were Mine, and several others. But it's good early Jim Reeves from the early to mid 1950s. Then he gets back with the choir and the orchestra back in 1960 as that comes around, and this is the intimate Jim Reeves. This was released in 1960. I'm not sure if Oh How I Miss You Tonight was the hit on it. Also, I'm Getting Better, if you remember that hit. That was released on this album in 1960, the intimate Jim Reeves. It's done with a female choir voice, and it's also done with an orchestra behind it. Very little country sound in it, but also a good, easy listening album, because that's what it is. It's easy listening. Then a massive album, He'll Have to Go. This album came out and sold well over 1 million copies. This, when he hit this, RCA didn't have a setup for him to get in and record an album, so they just took a bunch of his old records that were out of the library there and put them together and put this album together. Then He'll Have to Go was a big hit for him. If Heartache Is the Fashion was also some, and then there was I'd Like to Be, and the song Home. You may remember that one. That was also a hit for him from 1960. Gentleman Jim Reeves and the massive album He'll Have to Go. We cruised up to 1961. He decided to do an album of compilations. Recitations. That's what I'm trying to say. And this is Jim Reeves, and it's called Talking to Your Heart. And there's some good, he does a couple of Hank Williams things on it, Too Many Parties and Too Many Pals, Men with Broken Hearts. But he also does some nice stuff. The Old Tig is a story of his dog. And I'm Waiting for Ships That Don't Never Come In, and several others. It's just Jim Reeves talking with musical background, but it's also an enjoyable Your Heart from 1961. Then he gets back into the country. In 61, Tall Tales and Short Tempers. This is a good album. It's got a lot of folk songs in it. The Blizzard was the hit off of it. But he also did that Silver-Haired Daddy of Mine, which is attributed to Gene Autry. It's Nothing to Me, the original It's Nothing to Me. It was re-released under different instrumentation back in the 1970s. And The Wreck of the Number 9 is also a hit that I enjoy a lot. And this is a very good album if you ever see it. Jim Reeves, Tall Tales and Short Tempers, 1961. Then he gets back to the orchestras again. In 1962, he produced this album. It's called A Touch of Velvet. And if you haven't heard Welcome to My World, that's where that song came from, off of this album. It's done with the orchestra, but they're very good. They're old pop standards, All Dressed Up in Lonely, Wild Rose, He does a copy of I Fall to Pieces that was tributed to Patsy Cline and Be Honest With Me, and just a good, easy listening album, and that's A Touch of Velvet from Jim Reeves. Then he went back to the gospel again in 1962, and he produced Jim Reeves' We Thank Thee, and he wrote the title cut on this song. But there are also a lot of old standards, old hymns, I'll Fly Away Across the Bridge, The Night Watch, I'd Rather Have Jesus, Take My Hand, O Precious Lord, and several others. And this is also an enjoyable album. Like I said, you can't go wrong with Jim Reeves. Every one of his albums I enjoy listening to. I have favorites, but I enjoy listening to all of them. And this is from 1962. And RCA Camden came out with another compilation of his, and this is the countryside of Jim Reeves. And again, they're tracks from his 1950s, A Railroad Bum. The original version of Blue Side of Lonesome came out. That was released again in 1967 under different instrumentation. I Won't Forget You, which was a hit for him, and When Two Worlds Collide, and several others. And this is also an enjoyable album. And that's the countryside of Jim Reeves, some earlier stuff from him. In 63, he put out his only Christmas album. And that was 12 Songs of Christmas from 1963. And just a bunch of old standards, Jingle Bells, Blue Christmas. Senior Santa Claus is an interesting recording if you haven't heard that. White Christmas, Silver Bells, and several others, and a good Christmas album from Gentleman Jim Reeves. He does a good job on this one also. Also in 63, Gentleman Jim. Memories are made of this. Let me see, Stand-In I think was one of the hits off of it. I Love You Because was a big hit overseas for him. And Once Upon a Time and several others. And this is just another typical Jim Reeves album, but it's very good. It's an appealing collection of a bunch of ballads is what it is. Nice sound. Then in 63 they came out with the International Jim Reeves. And these are records that are songs that were recorded from around the world, a lot of them from Africa and places like that. The Old Kalahari is one of them. There'll be Bluebirds Over, the Old White Cliffs of Dover, the Blue Canadian Rockies. Heartbreaking Silhouette is one I enjoy quite a bit. And this is another good album. And a good sound, too. This album, above the others, I don't know why, but this album sound is delicious on my stereo system. So, hope you'll enjoy that one. That's the International Jim Reeves. Then in 64, they came out with the best of Jim Reeves, and this, of course, was a big selling album for him. He'll Have to Go, all the hits are here from the 1950s and 60s. He'll Have to Go, Four Walls, Blue Boy, The Blizzard, Am I Losing You, Anna Marie, Stand Out Your Window, and many others, and a very good album. And then there's a compilation of all his records up to that point on the back of them there that you can see. That's the best of Jim Reeves from 1964. Again, Camden released another album in 64. This album is called Have I Told You Lately That I Love You? And parts of this album are made from the original selections of his 56 albums, Singing Down the Lane. This is where a lot of the tracks, this is almost a recreation of his first album. And it's a good album. Beyond the Shadow of a Doubt is one of my favorites, and another one is Highway to Nowhere, which is on here. Have I Told You Lately That I Love You? And they didn't stop there. Camden came out with Good and Country. Now, I have heard people say that they enjoy this one the best because this is definitely country. It was produced by Anita Carr, and it's just a bunch of old country standards, but they're done with a real country sound and a real country group there. And that's Don't Let Me Cross Over, Little Old Dime, Lonely Music, Before I Died, and several others. And a great collection for Jim Reeves' friends and fans there. Good and country. We get up to 1964, and this is his album Moonlight and Roses, and this was the last release before he died. This was on the charts in July of 64 when he died. Not a big hit but it's still sold, I'm sure. It's got Irving Berlin's When I Lost You, Moonlight and Roses, Rosario. It basically songs about roses and moonlight is what this was about. But it's an enjoyable album, and it's typical Jim Reeves also. And of course, the plane crash happened in 1964, and that put an end to it. But it did put a big end to it because his wife, he had a habit of recording songs with him and his guitar and putting them away, giving them to his wife, because in the book, Like a Moth to a Flame, it states that he just had some feeling that he wasn't going to live to be an old man. So he would record these songs and give them to his wife, and she would put them on the shelf. And after he died, they had many, many songs to keep released, and they released them way up until 1982. But this is the Jim Reeves way, and this is the last recording session for Jim Reeves. This was in the making when he was on his plane and when he died. And he had done Make the World Go Away before Eddie Arnold got a hold of it. I Can't Stop Loving You, Maureen, and I Love You So Much It Hurts Me. And a very good album. This is a very delicious album. It's warm, it's wonderful, and it's just a pleasurable sound. And that's the Jim Reeves way from 1965. And they went up through the years again, another best of compilation of Jim Reeves. This one is got a lot of his hits from the 50s, basically. Most of them are. I Know One is one of them. Tweedle Twill, Bimbo's on here, Ichabod Train, Pride Goes Before a Fall, and several others. And just a good best of album from the 1950s, up through the years. Then in 1966 came a new Jim Reeves hit, and it topped the charts. The Vietnam War was going on. Jim had gone ahead and recorded this song, but Chet Atkins wouldn't let him record it, so he went home and recorded it on it with him and his guitar. And the reason was the Vietnam War was just starting up, and Chet Atkins didn't feel like the song was possible for the times. So Jim went ahead and recorded it at home, and of course I'm talking about Distant Drums. And this again was another smash hit. Is It Really Over was another hit for him that year. This Is It, Snowflake, and asking the musical question, Where Does a Broken Heart Go? One of my personal favorites off of this album. And a good sound and a good hit too. Jim Reeves, and that's Distant Drums from 1966. In 64, he was in Africa, and he stopped by and recorded his life story, basically, or talking about his life story. And after his death, RCA came and got the tapes, and they produced an album called Yours Sincerely, Jim Reeves. And it's basically him talking about his life, growing up, going to college, and things like that. And then side two is him talking about some of the music that he's recorded over the years. And it's a good one. It's good to hear him tell in his own words his own story. And this is Yours Sincerely, Jim Reeves. It was produced by Chet Atkins and Bob Ferguson. Then the Best of Jim Reeves Volume 2 came out in 1966. And that's got a lot of the hits from the 50s and 60s. Home, Welcome to My World, I Guess I'm Crazy, which was a hit in 1956, I believe. Drinking Tequila, Yonder Comes the Sucker, and several others. And again, another good compilation there from RCA and Jim Reeves. And there's the back of it, just like the first volume. They've got all the albums on the back that you could order back then. I'm sure most of them are still in print. At least I hope they are. Then in '67, they produced an album called My Cathedral, which he had recorded, or had some songs recorded. He took some of the songs off his Christmas album, Mary's Boy Child for one, and several others that he had done back in the 1950s. The highlight of this album is a song that he wrote called He Will. It's a beautiful song, and I really enjoy it. It's one of the highlights of this album for me. And there are also the standards, The Farmer and the Lord, Teach Me How to Pray, and Where Do I Go From Here? And Another good album from 1967, My Cathedral, Jim Reeves. Then in 67, another hit for him, The Blue Side of Lonesome. And this was the hit, The Blue Side of Lonesome, but there are also a lot of tracks that Mary had produced for him, and they had redone, and that's I Catch Myself Crying, Trying to Forget, Blue Without My Baby, and Deep Dark Water. That's one of the highlights of this album also that I enjoy. And it's Jim Reeves and The Blue Side of Lonesome from 1967. Moving along, there was a concert that he did in Pennsylvania back in 1961, and it was on a rainy day, and they got the tapes to this and edited them. It's been edited pretty much. I've got the original concert on CD for myself, but it's still a good concert. Jim Reeves on stage, and it gives you an idea of what he sounded like when he was live. He does all his hits, and By Losing You, and Stand Out Your Window, and The Blizzard, and several others. And a good performance from gentleman Jim Reeves. You'd enjoy that one. Then we go to 1968, and they produced an album called A Touch of Sadness. And this again is another good album. It's got several others that were released on albums before, but they did the big thing. The one that I love, Missing You, is on here. That's where Missing You came from. You Kept Me Awake Last Night was another one that was good that they had redone, and several others, and that's another good sound. A Touch of Sadness from Jim Reeves. Then the Best of Volume 3 came out in 1969, and these are the albums from the 1960s, songs from the 1960s. Distant Drums is on here, I'm Going to Change Everything, The Storm, Is It Really Over, and several others, and just a good, and there's a good note to him from Johnny Cash. He writes the liner notes to this album, and there's the back of it. There's the albums that you can, volumes 1 and 2, and the next one that's coming up. Jim Reeves and Some Friends. Like I said, they had been taking these tapes that he had recorded and redoing them and producing them, and they were becoming hits, and the albums were selling. People just couldn't get enough of Jim Reeves. A lot of people really enjoying it. And this, 1969, is Jim Reeves and Some Friends. And this has got Dottie West. They had a hit together in 1964 called Love Is No Excuse. He also does some things with Steve Moore, Alvadine Croker, which they had a hit in 1954 called Are You the One? Stand Out Your Window with Leo Jackson, and Jenny Wright, I Love You from 1954. And another good album, Jim Reeves and Some Friends from released in 1969. I don't have anything from 1970, and I still don't understand why, unless they decided to take a break. I don't know, but in 1971, the Camden album Young and Country came out. These are his first recordings, a lot of them, that he recorded on 78 RPM. But the problem they did with this album is they took the records and they added new instrumentation, and that ruins it for me. I enjoy Wagon Load of Love, which is a 1953 recording from him. But again, they've taken a lot of these records and added new instrumentation, and but it's still good. It's a good taste of what he was like when he was before starting. Jim Reeves, Young and Country. And then the first album I ever bought by Jim Reeves was this one in 1971. It was called Jim Reeves Something Special, and it came with a bunch of stickers that you see on the cover there. But the highlight of this album was one that I heard called You Kept Me Awake Last Night, and fell in love with it. And the album produced a lot of his old standards. That's what it is. I'm Getting Better, Letter to My Heart, Guilty, several hits that he had back in the 1960s, but still a good compilation. Jim Reeves, Something Special. Then he had a hit in 1971 called Angels Don't Lie. That was the hit. A lot of the records that were on his other previous albums are produced on this. Wild Rose from A Touch of Velvet, and Two Worlds Collide, The Storm, 7 Days from Talking to Your Heart, and several others. But Angels Don't Lie is the hit off of this album, and it's a good one too. Jim Reeves Writes You a Record. Then we come up to 1972. This is the album called Missing You. And they had re-released Missing You, and it became a hit in 1972, and it was a good one. There were several others. I Let the World Pass Me By was one of them, him and his guitar, that they added new instrumentation on. And I Miss Me, and some of his African recordings. Drof Morno Rapord is one of them, and I'd Rather Not Know. And they're they're a bunch of good songs that were orchestrated. Another Camden album from 71, or 72, excuse me, and this is Jim Reeves. This is a double album set, and again they go back to finding the old stuff from the 1950s. Blue Side of Lonesome's on here, the original version. A Railroad Bum, I'm Gonna Change Everything, and several others that he did. And this is an enjoyable album from early Jim Reeves. Jim Reeves' My Friend came out next. He had bought a radio station with a guy by the name of Tom Perryman, and Tom writes the liner notes for this album. And the hit for it was The Writing on the Wall, which was a big hit. Also, Gypsy Feet came off of this one. I forgot about that. And From a Jack to a King, the story on that is Ned Track on From a Jack to a King. Jim was over in Africa, and he jumped into a studio real quick and recorded From a Jack to a King, and it took off in Africa, and Jim got the praise for that song in Africa, but Ned Miller won it in the United States. But another good album, What Would You Do, and several others, There's a Heartache Following Me, and a good album, Jim Reeves' My Friend. Then another compilation album came out. This is called Great Moments with Jim Reeves, and they've got all his hits on it, of course. What's in It for Me, I Won't Forget You, Mexican Joe, Satan Can't Hold Me, He'll Have to Go, and several others. And again, on the back of it, it's got all the albums that were still in print at that time, in 1973. Then this song came out, Am I That Easy to Forget? They took that song and pushed new instrumentation behind it, and it became a hit for him in 1973. But they also took a lot of songs off of his various albums. Welcome to My World is on here. This Is It. Deep Dark Water. But the big thing was they took the album and redid the instrumentation. This was the first time that they were able to take previous instrumentation and put new instrumentation under it, if that makes any sense. But this is a good lesson. Am I That Easy to Forget? Then in 1974, another hit for him, I'd Fight the World, Jim Reeves. This album contains an alternate version of the Hawaiian Wedding song, plus never before released was Crying in My Sleep, which was also a song. But I'd Fight the World was the hit off of it, and a good listen there. Then they released another Best Of album, but this one was the Best of Jim Reeves' Sacred Songs. And this one has a lot of the records from up through the Take My Hand, Precious Lord, Whispering Hope, We Thank Thee, and several others. And He Will is on here also, which was his own composition, which I've stated before. George Beverly Shea writes the liner notes for it. To 1975, Songs of Love. Another pretty song. You'll Never Know, he was redone, and several others. In this album, they reproduced all of the songs that had new instrumentation for the first time, and a delicious album also. This is just a good low energy love song album from Jim Reeves, and that's Songs of Love from 75. RCA put out an album called Legendary Performers. They had a Legendary Performer series, and the highlights of this album was You're Slipping Away From Me, which was a hit in 1967, which wasn't produced on any of his albums, but also, it has all of his hits, Distant Drums, He'll Have to Go, Is It Really Over, and several others, but they're a good compilation. A Legendary Performer from Jim Reeves. Also in '76, another compilation, I Love You Because. This album is, it's good, it's enjoyable. It's got a lot of his old records on it, hits from the past. I Know One, A Fool Such As I, Someday You'll Want Me to Want You. And just a good album. There's the back of that one. It's got a good picture of the old guy right there. Then in '77, another big hit for him. It's Nothing to Me, if you remember that one. That was a big hit for him. And it was recreated. They recreated it. It's what they did. They took the album off the song off the album. I think it was on the International Jim Reeves from '63, and they recut it and re-instrumented it, and it became a top 10 hit for him. It's Nothing to Me, and it's a lot of the old standards. Gypsy Feet's on here, and Deep Dark Water, and several others. But another good album, Gentleman Jim Reeves. Then Pure Gold came out in 1978. They kept re-releasing his greatest hits, and this is no different. It's got stuff from the 60s and the 70s and the 50s. Four Walls, the Hawaiian Wedding Song, Welcome to My World, From a Jack to a King, and several others. But still a good album. Pure Gold. They never released a volume 2 of Pure Gold. '78, Nashville '78 was what this album was called. And You're the Only Good Thing That Happened to Me was re-released. And also a good song. It's got Missing Angel on it, and I'll Never Pass There Anymore, and Dark Moon, and several others. But another good listen to Jim Reeves. By now they were re-instrumentaling all of his songs on his albums. Then they got the idea to get a young lady by the name of, what was her name? Deborah Allen. Remember her? She had that song about Elvis Presley back years ago. And they teamed her up with Jim Reeves, and this was the beginning of her. This is Don't Let Me Cross Over. And on side one, she does some of the songs with him, sings over top of his vocal tracks, Don't Let Me Cross Over, When Two Worlds Collide. And this is a delicious album. It's you know, a lot of the old standards that are redone with new instrumentation again, and a good sound. 1979. Then the Best of Jim Reeves Volume 4 came out. And this has got I Heard a Heartbreak Last Night, Nobody's Fool, Blue Side of Lonesome, Gypsy Feet, Angels Don't Lie, and several others, mostly from the 60s and 70s. And it's got a little compilation of the song. Each one tells a little story about it. 1980 comes around. There's Always Me. And that was the title cut, and that was also the hit from 1980 that was redone. And they took and redid a lot of the songs off of his previous albums and put new instrumentation behind them. And they weren't. I didn't like them as much as I did the originals, but you know, I'm a purist. So then after that, they came out with Jim Reeves and Patsy Cline's Greatest Hits. Now this was a dual album set. What happened was they took Jim Reeves' vocal tracks, and Decca, who Patsy Cline recorded for, they swapped some songs. They gave Decca Records one of Jim Reeves' vocal tracks, and Decca gave them some of Patsy Cline's vocal tracks. And on this album, they put Have You Ever Been Lonely, Have You Ever Been Blue together, and that made a sort of a big hit for him. And then the other album came out with Decca, which wasn't as good as the RCA version, but it is good. And the rest of the tracks are just hits from him and Patsy Cline that were released. 1983, they came out with the medley, and they just took a bunch of his records and they just meshed them together, so to speak, with different, just a regular vocal track, not a vocal track, but a music track. And Four Walls, I Missed Me, He'll Have to Go, and Oh How I Miss You Tonight are all on the same song. I don't remember it hitting the radio, and I was kind of surprised when I heard this album, but it's still a good job. Then the Country Music Foundation came out with legendary Jim Reeves and a Live on the Grand Ole Opry was what this was. And these are tracks when he was on the Grand Ole Opry back from 1957 on up through 1961. And, you know, singing his hit songs and being introduced by several different people. But it's a good sound, good instrumentation of Jim Reeves. And last but not least, we come up to 1989, and I Love You More came out. And this is basically an recordings, pieces of his live recordings on different places and different times of him singing. If You Were Only Mine is one. There's one track on here that he did, the wind-up, which he sings, which was not released on any album. And a good sound there, a good interest, good of his live stuff. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you like Jim Reeves as much as I do. He's one of my favorites. And I'm proud to have all the American recordings that were produced back then in those years. And if you happen to find those, or maybe you haven't heard of Jim Reeves, maybe you'd like to listen to some of his early stuff, you find out how good he really was. Until we meet you again, this is Mr. Rick saying, the good Lord's willing, and the creeks don't rise, we'll see you before long.